Hey everyone, I hope you all are doing great. In today's video, we are going to talk about metaphysical poets. Now before we get into knowing the metaphysical school of poetry, we must look at its background. It was somewhere near late 16th or 17th century that the Elizabethan poetry began to exhaust. This Elizabethan poetry, as its name suggests, that it was associated with the reign of Elizabeth I. It had themes like love, time, value of writing, or eternalizing beauty, and it was based on classical material. And the people were really not interested in these Elizabethan writers, so it led to emergence of new school of poetry called the Metaphysical School of Poetry. However, it was not planned and it was not a proper school or a movement. It just reacted against the elaborate, smooth and soft tones of the 16th century. Coming forward to the origin of the word, observe this carefully. Here, meta, this means after. This tells us that it deals with the question that can't be explained by science. Therefore, the writer of this group attempt reader to question the unquestionable. And the term metaphysics is a tradition or method of arguing, popularized by a group of philosophers called the scholastics. It was William Drummond to first use the term metaphysics. But it was John Dryden who used this term in English literature while indicating to John Donne. As he says, Donne affects the metaphysics not only in his satire but also in his amorous verses. And later, Dr. Samuel Johnson was first to use the term as a pejorative in his work Lives of the Most Eminent English Poet. In the chapter Abraham Cowley, he writes, at the beginning of the 17th century, there appeared a race of writers that may be termed the metaphysical poets. The metaphysicals were not said to be the greatest writers because they did not fulfill Aristotelian concept of poetry as an imitative act. Means they did not imitate anything that they see in front of them. Instead, they believed in creative writing. And also, they were not writing to please anyone or to instruct, but to create suspense or mystery and to achieve their aim. Now, who are metaphysical poets? Metaphysical poets was a group of 17th century English poets whose works was characterized by the intensive use of conceits and by a greater emphasis on spoken rather than lyrical quality of the verse. By this, we understand that they were really bold to go away from the soft tone teaching and they began using conceits. Now, this is important term associated with them. It can be reframed and called as metaphysical conceit, which means comparison between objects which have no apparent connection. That is, these writers believed in far-fetched writings to any other thing in this world or beyond this world. To understand this, let's take an example. We'll take an example of John Donne's poem called A Valediction Forbidding Morning. And yeah, John Donne is considered a master of the metaphysical conceit. In this poem, A Valediction Forbidding Morning, he compares two lovers to the needle of the compass. Now one might think that can a lover and a compass be really connected? However, this is the pure example of the conceits that there is a far-fetched comparison between two things. Now let's discuss some characteristics of metaphysical poems. In my own words, I would like to call these poems as the poem that shocked the readers, that has an conventional style, that has an intellectual conceit, and that which has the far-fetched comparison between two dissimilar things. Now the first characteristics, as we have discussed, is that of use of conceits. And the next is noble thought, diction and action. By noble thought, we mean the right thought, and the diction represents the language, and action represents the works that the human do. Next is, their thought and ideas were unique. Because unlike other poets, they did not believe in imitating anything they see. Rather, they believed in giving a creative blend to their works. there is this line that Walter Scott says in regard to this point. He says, the metaphysicals played with the thoughts, as Elizabethan had played with words. Now, the third characteristic, that is, learnedness of unconventionality, means this poet did not believe in the convention or the tradition, rather they believed in their own writing, of inventing. Dr. Samuel Johnson rightly says that metaphysicals were the man of learning, and to show the learning was their whole endeavor. They copied neither nature nor life. Next is love affection or hyperbole and colloquialism, means metaphysical poetry mainly deals with the theme of love, in which poetry has variously used hyperboles. Hyperbole in the sense the exaggerated language. And the poetry has colloquialism, that is abrupt starting, means something that is not familiar. Then other characteristics include everyday speech, logic, use of images, not always easily understood, then use of artificial metaphors, and the mixture of wit and high seriousness. Also there is use of lots of irony and paradox. While some common themes of these poems include dealing with the religious affairs, then carpe diem, which says seize the day, that is to exaggerate whatever you can within a day. Then man's relationship with the God. Now if you are preparing for any competitive exam of literature, it becomes truly important to remember the poets associated with the metaphysical group, because in such exams it is always asked that who were the metaphysical poets or identify the metaphysical poets if it is in MCQ format. So, the metaphysical poets includes Andrew Marvell, John Donne, George Herbert, Richard Carshaw, Thomas Carcrew, Abraham Cowley and Henry Vaughan. Last but not the least are some writing associated with this school. The most famous is T.S. Eliot's critical essay called The Metaphysical Poets. Then, there is also a poem by Andrew Marvell that is called To His Coy Mistress. Again, Samuel Johnson's The Lives of the Poets that we have mentioned earlier, and the Discourse Concerning the Satire by John Donne. With this, we have completed all aspects of metaphysical school of poetry. I believe that you understood it. I thank you for your listening and I look forward to see you in the next one.